Hello. How's it going? I'm being so weird. I don't know why. Hi, how's it going? Welcome to another episode of the Pop Astrology podcast. My name is Jessie James. I'll be your host this evening, this morning, this afternoon, whatever it may be. And today we're talking about SZA, and I'm so excited. And this was actually inspired because I was watching a Hayley Williams interview for my podcast episode last week about the astrology of Hayley Williams. And in this interview, the interviewer asked Hayley, who is the Black artist that you most want to work with? And Hayley said, SZA, no doubt. And I was like, same, Hayley Williams. I also love SZA. And her astrology is so interesting. Grandwater trine in earth houses, 12th house stuff. Like, to this episode is going to be so much about actually the 12th house. So if you have 12th house placements, or if you're interested in learning more about the 12th house, I really do feel that this is the episode for you, and I'm excited to have you here. Anyway, this is the most like what has been going on week ever, because obviously the biggest news is that Taylor Swift announced her 12th studio album, The Life of a Showgirl. I already made a video doing a Gaylor analysis and dissecting Taylor's appearance on Travis Kelce and Jason Kelce's podcast, New Heights. That video is on my YouTube channel if you would like to see it. I've also been making a ton of TikToks, which you can access at Pop Astrology Pod, about this, but she basically just lied the whole time. She contradicted herself of things she said in the interview. She would say one thing and then contradict it a moment later. And then she also contradicted herself of just like facts about Taylor Swift in general. She was like, I didn't know what a touchdown was before I met Travis Kelce. I had never, ever watched football. And then she's like been an active Philadelphia Eagles fan her whole entire life and like has worn Eagles jerseys to perform on stage at her tours since she was like a young girl. It's not, the math is not mathing. Whether people choose to see that or not, none of my business, but I personally am so excited for this. The track titles alone, The Fate of Ophelia, Drowning, Taylor Swift on the cover of her album, Drowning, Taylor Swift in the New Heights interview. Yes, this album art is actually me taking a nice, relaxing bath. It has nothing to do with track number 1, The Fate of Ophelia. Nothing at all. No. Just a nice, relaxing bath. Like, come on. If you can't see through that lie, what hope do we have as a country? What hope do we have as a society? So yeah, that's been going on. My friends are threatening to hold me hostage and not let me move back to the East Coast because they don't want me to miss the TS12 listening party. But I tell them now, I'll tell them tomorrow, and I told them yesterday, I want rain. I miss the fucking rain so much. All I want for my birthday is a thunderstorm and a bunch of cake. I love cake. Thunderstorm. Get me out of here. I don't want to breathe smog anymore. I want my cats to live in the forest. I want to live in the forest. I am a fairy. People just don't really understand. That's okay. Because SZA, our SZA sister, she is gay. She would understand because she also has never felt understood, and that's on 12th house placements. I guess last thing is I told you guys that I went to Palm Springs last weekend. It was my going away party and my best friend's like birthday party. I had the best time. We did a drag night, and my best friend and I did a choreographed drag lip sync routine, and we slayed. We won, which I was super not expecting, especially because the last time I did a lip sync, I was robbed. Everyone knows I was robbed. Video footage shows that I was robbed so as to not hurt some other girl's feelings. Did you even think about hurting my feelings, though? Because I should have won that lip sync. But I digress. My feelings were not hurt. Clearly, I'm over it. Yeah, we each won a $25 Ulta gift card, which is amazing because I do not have an income and I do need to buy new makeup. So there's that. But yeah, had a great time. The desert is not meant for humans to live. It was 122 degrees one of the days we were there. The pool just felt like bath water. Like, it was so hot everywhere. God, it was disgusting. It It was the hottest day ever recorded in Palm Springs, 122 degrees. Anyway, before I say any more weird stuff, let's talk about SZA. SZA, née Solana Imani Rowe, was born in St. Louis, Missouri on November 9th, 1989. She is a Scorpio Sun, Pisces Moon, and an Aquarius rising. She was born in St. Louis, but she grew up in Maplewood, New Jersey, and her mom was Christian. She comes from the Bamileke, I hope I'm saying that right, tribe in Cameroon, and she was an executive at AT&T. And then SZA's father is a Muslim, and he was a video producer at CNN. And SZA is very spiritual, she prays a lot. She is very devoted to God. And she says that in her household growing up, even though her mom was Christian and her dad was Muslim, they really blended their faiths together. They both went to each other's places of worship on holidays and special occasions, and they blended the faith. And so SZA has said, it's like the belief in one God. Those are ideas that will never leave me. Those make sense in my spirit. It's the way I connect with God. It has always made so much sense to me. SZA wore a hijab in elementary and early middle school, but she stopped wearing it after 9/11 because of Islamophobic bullying, which is just so frustrating. So SZA has also said, I would love to wear my hijab, but I feel like I don't want to wear my hijab and talk crazy on stage and be in videos with Travis Scott. I don't want to be disrespectful because I have too much love and respect for the religion, for my father, and for myself. But her joint faith upbringing and just two people in her home who had different faiths, but respected each other's faith and integrated them because they understood that they both worship the same God, was very impactful to her as a child. And I also think that that's really powerful. I think there's usually a lot of animosity between people of Abrahamic faiths, specifically right now in this country. And so it is heartening to see people who understand, yes, I believe one thing and you believe another, but at the end of the day, we believe in the same God. And SZA also considers her maternal grandmother, her mom's mom, Norma, to be her best friend. SZA has always loved music, and her inspirations growing up were church music, but also Miles Davis, Billie Holiday, John Coltrane, Tupac, Ella Fitzgerald, Lauryn Hill, Ashanti, Bjork, Common, Macy Gray, Jamiroquai, Wu-Tang, Nas, Mos Def, and Jay-Z. When SZA was in high school, she was on the gymnastics and the cheerleading teams. And then everyone graduated, and she said in an interview that a lot of the things that she has done up to this point is to try to prove to the other kids in high school that she wasn't a loser, because she was everyone from my high school went to GW or some college. And SZA enrolled in 3 different colleges before she settled on Delaware State University, where she was studying marine biology. And then she dropped out in her final semester of college to pursue her music career. So she's been fighting this wound of never feeling as conventionally book smart as her peers and her classmates, having not achieved a college diploma like they did. So she's done a lot of work sort of out of spite, just to prove people that they were wrong about her. Very 12th house of her. After she dropped out from college, she drank a lot of Malibu, smoked a lot of pot, and slept in every day. Many would call that lazy. I don't know. I sort of call it living. Oh, that's the other thing I missed, actually. Rewind. Last Sunday, August 10th, was my 3-year anniversary of being sober from alcohol. Really, really exciting times. Alcohol, honestly, I don't care if other people drink alcohol. I have no problem being around other people who are drinking. I was around people binge drinking all of this past weekend. I don't like it. After being an alcoholic for a decade and then quitting and looking back, really not for me. Really not for me. But anyway, SZA was sleeping in, enjoying her life. There's no reason you have to get up early if you don't want to. You don't have to have a job that starts at 9 a.m. But she was using a fake name to get bartending jobs, and she was also doing a little midnight ballerina stint on the side from time to time. Her stage name SZA was inspired by the Nation of Islam and the Supreme Alphabet. She took inspiration from RZA and GZA from the Wu-Tang Clan. The S in her name stands for Savior or Sovereign. The Z stands for Zigzag, and the A stands for Allah. And so SZA's foray into the music industry started when she met a representative from Top Dog Entertainment, which sounds very familiar because it's the label that first signed Kendrick Lamar, who I talked about a couple of episodes ago. So she was actually at a show that Kendrick Lamar was playing at that was sponsored by her ex-boyfriend's clothing company. And she met executives there from Top Dog Entertainment and started making music. And especially early in her career, she just used a lot of like beats that she pulled off of the internet. She freestyles everything. I watched her Zane Lowe interview about SOS / about Lana. And she was like, yeah, I don't go into the studio with the concept for a song in mind. I just get up there and I just start saying things. And then it becomes a song. And she was saying that a lot of her like most famous songs, like Kill Bill, for example, came from, she would just like go to the sound engineer and be like, hey, play a palette cleanser beat. Like, I just need to listen to something. And then she would start freestyling over it. And she was like, in a joke with the audio engineer, she was like, should I kill my ex? And he was like, oh, girl. And then Kill Bill was born. And she's like, I can't believe that song is so popular. It was just a little joke. But that's music for you. She also said she hates being in the studio because it feels like a dungeon. In 2014, she opened for Jhené Aiko and Coldplay, and at this time, she was also co-writing songs for other artists. She co-wrote the song Feeling Myself by Nicki Minaj and Beyonce in 2014, and she co-wrote Consideration by Rihanna in 2016 for her album Anti, and she co-wrote some other songs in between those. She released her album Ctrl on June 9th, 2017, which featured the singles Drew Barrymore, Love Galore featuring Travis Scott, The Weeknd, Broken Clocks, and Garden. Ctrl was a slow burn. People didn't like immediately flock to it and love it when it first came out, but it ended up being such a beloved album by the end of the year, like 6 months later. It was #1 album released in 2017 on Time's list. It was #2 on the lists of NPR, Pitchfork, and Billboard. And it debuted at #3 on Billboard. It was the second longest charting R&B album by a woman at 7 consecutive years. She then recorded the song All the Stars with Kendrick Lamar, and she went into the studio and didn't know what it was for. They were like, this is a song for Disney. They didn't tell her it was Black Panther. They didn't tell her it was the lead single on the Black Panther soundtrack. They were just like, yes, this is just a song for Disney. So she records All the Stars, and then it comes out as the lead single from the Black Panther soundtrack. And she was like, what? That's so cool. Like, why didn't they tell me? And for this song, All the Stars, she got her first Oscar, Golden Globe, and Critics' Choice Award nominations. It then took her 5 years to release her next album, SOS, because she was like burned out, unsatisfied with her writing process, in a deep depression, struggling a lot with her mental health. I watched so many interviews of SZA to get ready for this, and like one thing is that she's very open about this, but she struggles a lot with anxiety and self-doubt and self-criticism, and it all shows up in her birth chart. So I'm going to talk about that a lot more, but it makes sense that she, you know, struggled so much to put out a second album, especially after the first one was so critically acclaimed, like Time's #1 album of the year 2017. She received 5 Grammy nominations for Ctrl and didn't win any of them, even though she was the most nominated woman that year. It's just a lot of pressure, and she was really worried about making sure that her creative decisions on the album made sense. But in 2021, she recorded the song Kiss Me More with Doja Cat, for which she won her first Grammy for Best Pop Duo / Group Performance. And then she released SOS on December 9th, 2022, and critics said that it surpassed their expectations. It was well worth the wait. It spent 10 weeks at #1 on Billboard, surpassing both Adele's and Michael Jackson's records for longest running top 10 album by a woman and by a Black person, respectively. And then SOS won the Grammy for Best Progressive R&B Album, and Snooze won the Grammy for Best R&B Song. And then fast forward to this year, in 2025, she made her acting debut in the movie One of Those Days, starring Keke Palmer and Issa Rae alongside SZA, and Issa Rae also produced the film. I also watched so many interviews of Issa and Keke and SZA doing press for One of Those Days. Like, they went on Hot Ones together. They went on a bunch of different little like game shows on YouTube together. And Issa had to give SZA 3 pieces of advice to improve her acting career. And they were all like, believe in yourself, act more, do this in more places, and like remember that you are a talented star. It's just like Clearly everyone around her is like, you are so talented, please stop hating yourself. And she's just like, cannot. So many 12th house planets. Can't do it. Sorry. She loves movies and references them a lot in her work. Obviously, the song Kill Bill, the song Gone Girl, her song Drew Barrymore. I watched her on the Drew Barrymore show and she like gushed over Drew. She was like, I've written you a letter and just never sent it. I owe you so much. She was talking about how it was so like relatable and refreshing to see Drew act in movies when she was younger and see that Drew didn't have like a perfect smile. She didn't have this like Instagram face, but she was just like real and being herself. SZA has also been super open about her struggles with mental health, depression, anxiety, and suicidal ideation. The latter started getting really bad after 3 of her ex-boyfriends died back to back to back. And then in 2018, her friend Mac Miller passed away. And then her grandma passed away in 2020. It was just like sent her spiraling into this like hole of darkness. And it demotivated her from making her own music, but she did get through it using music and using prayer. And she's also very involved in like yoga and spirituality and astrology. In terms of her love life, she is openly bisexual and generally keeps her dating life private, with the exception of her relationship with Drake, who she dated in 2009. On Hot Ones with Issa and Keke, one of the questions was, is Drake a good kisser? You have to answer or eat a hot wing. And she just went right into that hot wing. She was like, I do not want to talk about him. She also spent 11 years with her fashion designer ex-fiance. 5 of those years were spent engaged. She says that their relationship was very codependent, but that she really relied on him when she was first getting started in her music career because he was like financing her life while she hustled. And then they broke up in 2017, which sent her into a real spiral. She called him her rock, and a lot of the songs on SOS are about him, including Nobody Gets Me. So that is an overview of SZA, and now we will look at her birth chart. Once again, SZA was born on November 8th, 1989 at 12:17 p.m. in St. Louis, Missouri, and she is a Scorpio Sun, Pisces Moon, and an Aquarius rising. She also has this big triangle, as you can see in the middle. This is called a grand trine, and it's in her water sign. So in Scorpio, she has her Sun, Pluto, Mercury, and Mars. In Pisces, she has her moon, and in Cancer, she has this like Jupiter-Chiron almost conjunction. They have a 6-degree orb. And this is also in the earth houses, the houses that are naturally ruled by the earth sign. The 2nd house, which is naturally ruled by Taurus, the 6th house, which is naturally ruled by Virgo, and the 10th house, which is naturally ruled by Capricorn. She also has a Capricorn stellium in her 12th house. She has Venus, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune here. And this all, obviously, like, look at all that Scorpio, look at all that Capricorn, has so much to do with her life. And then throw in the Pisces moon for good measure. And while we're at it, Jupiter conjunct Chiron. Let's go, baby. She's a warrior. The universe only gives birth charts like this to their strongest soldiers. And SZA, as much as it might not feel that way sometimes, you are one of the universe's strongest soldiers, because this birth chart is not for the weak. I also just want to mention this grand water trine, major focus of her chart, and her going to college and studying marine biology. Astrology's real. Being an Aquarius rising, her chart ruler is Saturn, which I find very interesting because she has a song called Saturn. And her Saturn, as I mentioned, is in her 12th house Capricorn. And so this is where we're going to deep dive into the 12th house. So once again, if you or someone you love has a lot of 12th house placements, this is going to be the episode for you. In the zodiac, in the zodiacal wheel, the 12th house is the final house of the zodiac. It's the natural house of Pisces, and Pisces is where you sort of like transcend your corporeal form and unite and merge with the collective consciousness of the universe. It's a place where boundaries are blurred. The traditional ruler is Jupiter. The modern ruler is Neptune. Neptune loves to obscure and hide things. And every house placement in your chart is based on your rising, right? Like your rising is your first house. And so the position of every other house is based on that rising. The rising, of course, is where the sun was rising over the horizon, in which sign it was rising over the horizon at the moment that you were born. So the sun rises for your first house, and the 12th house is the house like right above it, right above where the sun is rising. And so when the sun is rising, these planets in this house get obscured by like atmospheric haze and trees and sunlight that's so bright that you can't see what's under it. And that's why the 12th house is so like obscured and mysterious. These things weren't clearly visible at the time that you were born. And so they take on this like dark, mysterious, like can't really be fully seen. You can't really access the things in the 12th house very easily, place in her birth chart. So these planets where they might be like in a more prominent place in someone else's chart, they can be in the first house, illuminated by the sun, like really making themselves known as part of your appearance. Complete opposite of what's going on here where they're in the 12th house. Obscured, can't be seen, like you don't really know what's going on here. That's what the 12th house is, and that's why it's so dark and mysterious. It's traditionally associated with things like mental institutions and hospitals and prisons, like behind the scenes life, the darkest areas in our society. But on a personal, psychological, archetypal level, it's your subconscious. It's the things that your brain and your body know, but you're not allowed to know them. Like your conscious is not aware of these things. When I was an alcoholic, like when I used to black out regularly and continue to move through the world and like interact with people and go places and stuff, all of that information is stored in my subconscious. I have zero conscious recollection of any of it. I don't know what I did, but my subconscious knows what I did. I'll never know. I can't unlock that, but it's in my body. The 12th house is a place of isolation, darkness, and limits, and very little thrives here. But Saturn is a planet that finds its planetary joy in the 12th house, which is interesting and a little bit counterintuitive. Saturn does not do well in the other water houses, the 4th house, the 8th house. Saturn does not do well in Cancer, which is the natural sign of the 4th house. I talked about Hayley Williams last week, who has Saturn in her 8th house, and how Saturn doesn't like to be in the 8th house. Saturn really struggles there. But Saturn finds its quote-unquote planetary joy in the 12th house. Saturn rejoices in the 12th house. And here's why. Saturn is the greater malefic. Saturn shines where positive things don't. Like in the deepest darkness, Saturn is the one who shines. Because Saturn delights when it has loneliness and pressure and difficulty. The atmosphere on the planet Saturn is so pressurized that it literally rains diamonds. Like Saturn is all about when you are backed into a corner, you are going to find your strength to get you out of there. When there are limitations placed on you, it's a fertile ground for innovation. You find a way to get out of there. That's Saturn in the 12th house, and that's why Saturn does so well there. And this is especially true when you think about that Saturn demands sacrifice. Like Saturn, I always say, rewards hard work, but that's sacrifice. You're sacrificing your time. You're sacrificing whatever you had to give up. You know, everything has an opportunity cost in order to do the work on that subject that's being asked of you. And Saturn is going to reward that hard work and therefore reward that sacrifice. You can't become something new without shedding your old skin. In the 12th house, you see all of the versions of yourself that you were before but had to leave behind to grow into something new. And that's why Saturn loves the 12th house. He's like, look how many people you used to be that you're not now because you changed and made yourself better. And there you are in your 12th house, struggling, anxious, depressed, substance abuse issues going, yeah. Thanks so much. I really appreciate it. But you do at the end of the day. And you never have to be grateful for any traumatic experience that happened to you. Obviously, that sucks. I wish so much of the trauma that I've been through didn't happen to me. At the same time, I know that that trauma has made me stronger. I know that I am a more resilient and innovative and like bootstrappy person or whatever because I have been backed into corners and had to fight my way out of them. I am grateful for Saturn and the 12th house. That does not mean I have to say like, this was the best time of my life. My 12th house Saturn return. Incredible. Loved that. Can't wait till I'm 58. And Saturn in Capricorn is Saturn in domicile. So this means SZA can really grind it out. Like, she's very good at grinding, and she's very good at operating in dark spaces and using the pressure and the isolation to create something beautiful. I think that's very obvious in her work, but it probably doesn't make for a fun time. I think that's also very obvious when you watch interviews of her. When she went on Hot Ones dressed as a bug in all of her prosthetics and was just talking to the interviewer and was like, I'm just so tired of not being a bug. Like, why can't I be a bug? Why do I have to deal with all of these human things and human problems when I could be a bug? And that is a 12th house person. And then you add the Scorpio and it's like, SZA, if you ever watch this, I know what you've been going through. I know that you feel chronically misunderstood. And I also feel chronically misunderstood. And I love you. I'll keep us in her 12th house and we'll move on to her 12th house Capricorn Venus. Venus in Capricorn is someone who is a very cautious lover, someone who values reliability over spontaneity, an ambitious and goal-oriented person who usually prioritizes their career over their romantic pursuits, an emotionally reserved person who has a more stoic demeanor in relationships, and someone who has a pragmatic and practical approach to love and relationships in general. These are all very Capricornian themes. An earth sign, a cardinal sign, ready to go, but very practical, goal-oriented, and pragmatic, fused with the energy of Venus, which is all about love and beauty and pleasure and like friendship and money too. Venus also represents how we relate to others, the things that we find beautiful and the things that we find attractive, and our capacity for pleasure and enjoyment. And in the 12th house, this becomes much more like introspective and mystical, which has upsides and downsides. Some of the upsides are just that if you have Venus in the 12th house, which is an incredibly common placement for celebrities, by the way, like I maintain databases and collages and stuff of like celebrities and their house and sign placements for each of the planets. And everyone has their Venus in their 12th house. Like everyone, not everyone, but so many people. And it's because I think it gives you this like behind the scenes allure. Like you don't have Venus in any of the visible houses in your chart. And so there's like something about you, you know, there's like a really, really strong and unique charm, but you can't quite put your finger on it. And that's what makes someone like so good at being a celebrity, because celebrities are people who people can't fully understand, but they want to. They can't quite put their finger on it, but they want to know more. And that's what gives someone the charisma and the allure to really captivate the public eye and keep it for years or even decades. And they experience love and relationships in a more like secretive, mysterious, mystical, and even sacrificial manner. These people have a very rich inner life, which also contributes to it being a very common placement in the charts of creatives. They have such a strong imagination. They have such a strong like mysticality and spirituality to them. They seek really deep, like soul level connections and relationships, and usually need to have a spiritual connection or share spirituality practices with someone in order to be in a relationship with them. And they also have a tendency towards hidden or secretive relationships. These are people who usually keep their private life and their relationships out of the public eye, and even like having a secret boyfriend who no one knows about. SZA hasn't really done that, I don't think, but that's a placement of someone who would do that. That's a placement of someone who never posts about the person they're dating until like their wedding day or the day they get engaged. That's a 12th house Venus. But they also just have such a deep sense of like compassion and a desire to help people through love and beauty and art and creativity. The shadow sides of a 12th house Venus are just like a very, very deep fear of vulnerability and opening up to other people. This is especially heightened because SZA has her sun conjunct Pluto in Scorpio, which is already like a very paranoid aspect. This really adds to that. This also can indicate sacrificial qualities in relationships. These people can tend to put their partner's needs above their own. It does not surprise me that SZA categorizes her relationship with her ex-fiance as codependent. That makes a lot of sense with this placement. And then these people are also prone to escapism and like idealization in love and relationships, rose-colored glasses, refusing to see things for what they actually are, but creating an image of it and a story of it in their head, and then getting really disappointed and disillusioned when the reality of something does not match up with the image they created in their head. A lot of dissociation here too, so that you can pretend that things are exactly like they are in their head instead of acknowledging the reality of what's playing out in real life and the reality of the person who your partner is, not the version of them that you want them to be, but their actual personhood of who they are. This Venus is conjunct her Uranus in her 12th house Capricorn. And a 12th house Uranus is a lot just like feeling like you do not belong in this crazy, noisy, chaotic world. Feeling alienated and lonely from a young age, feeling misunderstood, feeling like you weren't allowed to be yourself or become yourself when you were a child. And this placement can lead to like a really deep journey of self-discovery and unconditional self-love, but the road to get there is not easy because you have to fight through this tendency to use illusions and escapism to cope with the hard reality of the world instead of facing it head on. And then a Uranus-Venus conjunction in your birth chart indicates just like an unconventional way of loving, since it is openly bisexual, and that is unconventional in the patriarchy. It also means that these people struggle with commitment and consistency. They can fall in love very quickly, but then they also fall out of love very quickly. And this is in Capricorn. It's ruled by Saturn. So we talked about how she probably has, you know, a pretty like values reliability over spontaneity sort of relationship style. But then Uranus is in the mix and it's like, actually, we'll make this a little bit more confusing. She has these conflicting energies of Saturn, which is all about structure and boundaries and discipline and limits. And then Uranus, which is like cuckoo bananas, going like, let's throw all that out the window. And it's all in her 12th house behind the scenes. So her brain must feel crazy. There's a lot of different energies, conflicting energies going on back there. Like, I'm not jealous, but I do offer much love and compassion and support. Also, in her 12th house Capricorn, she has Saturn, which we've already talked about, conjunct her Neptune. A 12th house Neptune is super SZA. It indicates a sensitive, introverted, introspective person who loves solitude. These people can also be extroverted, but they will always love solitude. These people are shy and self-conscious, especially when they're younger, and they're very prone to depression and anxiety. Sorry. And then one of the positive sides is that they have much more like empathy and compassion than other people. The shadow side to that, obviously, is that this world is not a great place for people who are super hyper empathetic and compassionate. It honestly really sucks. Like, there are so many narcissists in this world who have no empathy and no compassion, are just like so self-interested that it's so painful because they keep causing war. And war is horrible and like incredibly, incredibly hard on so many people for so many reasons, and on the environment, and especially on like really hypersensitive and empathetic and compassionate people. If you haven't read Parable of the Sower by Octavia Butler, the main character is a young woman who has like sort of like a magical realism sort of like condition called hyperempathy, where when people are shot or hurt around her, like she gets into such extreme pain and like can't move or anything. Amazing showing of the downside of having like a lot of empathy naturally. But of course, the plus side, I would much rather live this life and like really care about animals like so much and say hello to every lizard and flower and blade of grass that I pass than to like have no magic in my life. So yeah, double-edged sword. And then a Saturn-Neptune conjunction happens every about like 35 to 36 years. So SZA has this in her birth chart for November 1989. And we're having the next Saturn-Neptune conjunction in Aries at the beginning of 2026. It gets really close this year. I think it's already gotten as close as it's going to get. And then they both retrograde back into Pisces and they both move back into Aries. And then we have a conjunction at the 0th degree of Aries. The last time this happened was like 423 BC when they invented calendars, currency, and language. What are we going to invent? I've got ideas. But what this means is that people born under Saturn-Neptune conjunctions are dreamers. They're visionaries born into a time period where people's dreams take form. For us in this next year, it's going to be like the decline of the US as the main power. We're going to move away from a unipolar world into a multipolar world, probably astrologically. And so we're going to witness like the decline of the US empire. And then we finally leave this crisis period next July 2026, when we get caught in this like gorgeous basket aspect. And then we're going to rebuild together, create a new and better future that empowers everyday people and doesn't just keep people poor in the service of a few people being extraordinarily wealthy. So people born under these conjunctions are visionaries who are really good at blending the mysticism and the illusions of Neptune with the disciplines and duty of Saturn, and making these dreams, Neptune, a reality, Saturn. People with these powers are born into the world at this time and 36 years prior because we need people who are able to like create movements that last, like have real visions of a better world and find ways to put them into practice. This is also Taylor Swift, for the record. I'm trusting her with my life. So that's SZA's 12th house. She has those 4 planets in her 12th house, Capricorn. Now I'm going to move over to her 10th house of Scorpio, where she has the Sun, Mercury, and Pluto all in a conjunction. This is also where she has her Mars, as well as her Lilith and her midheaven. And this is her 10th house, the most visible place in her chart, the house of career, of reputation, of public image, of how other people see you. And her sun being here means that like her life journey is about being in the spotlight, basically. She was meant to record music that makes it to the top of the charts because she has a very important message, Saturn-Neptune conjunction, to share. She is a visionary. She creates and shows a vision for a better world so people can engage with her art and be like, oh, maybe these things are possible. Sun conjunct Mercury is someone who is very chatty, intelligent. They're very good at communicating. But Sun conjunct Pluto, I think Justin Bieber and or Katy Perry also have this. Justin's might be conjunct his rising, something of the sort. Sun conjunct Pluto is someone who goes out into the world. They have to. They're called to, especially in the 10th house, with the intention of hiding. They are so scared of this world. They view the world as a very scary place. Pluto is a planet that has very dark and scary and sinister energy, yet highly important and deeply transformative. And their big thing, especially as a celebrity, is that Scorpio placements really know that information is power, that secrets are one of your greatest currencies, and Pluto is the modern ruler of Scorpio. So these people are always worried that other people know more about them than they know about other people. They very closely control the flow of information about them. There is a lot that they keep behind the scenes and they just don't show it. They give you information so that you stop asking, so that they can control what other people see about them. But they still have this like fear. Like anytime they're out in the world, they're looking for places to hide. They want to have a place where they can be safe and not be at the mercy of other people. This is also a very introverted placement, and it really indicates someone who likes to spend a lot of time alone. And a Mercury-Pluto conjunction indicates someone who is really a truth seeker, someone who aims to get to the bottom of everything. You cannot lie to these people because they will know that you're lying and they will already know the truth. And so you're not hiding anything from them. You're just gaining a reputation with them as a liar. This is also someone who's like very good at journaling. They're very good at writing about their life experiences, and SZA's songs are very personal in that way. She says that like journaling her whole life does really help her when she's freestyling these songs because she has these experiences processed in words. And the last thing I'll say about a Mercury-Pluto conjunction is that it's someone with a very native natural understanding of the occult, of death, of rebirth, of mysticism, of ghosts and mysteries and things that are intangible. But to these people, people with very strong 8th house placements, people with very strong Scorpio placements, people with very strong Mercury-Pluto aspects, these things feel tangible, or they at least like feel more real and more understandable than practical, tangible things, because they're natives in that. Like, they naturally speak the language of the occult, just like if you naturally spoke any other language, they understand it. So this 10th house Sun Mercury Pluto conjunction in Scorpio makes a trine to SZA's Pisces Moon in the 2nd house. The 2nd house is all about money, but it's also about value, the things that you value, your value of yourself. It's the natural house of the sign Taurus, and Taurus is ruled by Venus. It's all about comfort and like material possessions and wealth in a very material way. Earth sign, all tangible things. But it's not an earth sign, it's Pisces. It's Pisces, the natural sign of the 12th house. Mystical, magical. Is that a Benson Boone lyric? I don't care. Pisces, beyond the corporeal form, transcendent, universal, collective conscious. Pisces, which is a very emotional place to have a very emotional planet, the moon. The moon in Pisces in the 2nd house is a lot about the connection of wealth to emotional stability. Like, these people, if they are not feeling very emotionally stable, one of their first impulses might be to go out and buy things. Because if you're stuck in a very like individualistic mindset, and especially if you're like scared and feel alone, the more things you acquire, like the bigger you feel and the more safe you feel. Strong family bonds can also make these people feel very secure, because the moon is very deeply tied to family and origins. These people have very like intuitive spending habits, not necessarily in like I trust my gut instinct, whether it says I should spend or not, but just like maybe emotional spending habits is a better way to do it. Like, if they have a certain feeling, they want to shop. And if they have another certain feeling, they do not want to shop. They really value beauty and practicality in their spending, and they love material things, but they do need to balance this love for material things with their need to retain money so that they feel secure. And they can have a lot of guilt after they buy something. And her moon and the Sun Mercury-Pluto conjunction also make a trine to this Jupiter-Chiron near conjunction. It's a 6-degree orb. I usually do like 3-degree orbs for conjunction, but it's closer than it would be anywhere else in her chart, in her 6th house of Cancer. Chiron, which is your wounded healer, your deepest wound that you heal in this lifetime and then use that to help others, in Cancer is about like belonging, feeling like you belong to a family and you have this strong sense of home. We're all born with this idea that home exists. And some people are born into a home that is very loving and a very loving family. Many people are not. Hello. And so these people go through their whole life with this like feeling like, I must find home. I yearn for home. I yearn for the place I feel belong. This is what the entire movie Anastasia is about, my favorite movie in the world. That's a wound of Chiron in Cancer. And a Chiron in the 6th house is a wound that you experience doing your daily work. Not necessarily in your career public image, that's the 10th house, not in the money that you make from your job, that's the 2nd house, but in the work that you do every single day. These are people who struggle with finding a good work-life balance, which throws them off mental health-wise, emotionally. They struggle with control issues and perfectionism. The 6th house is the natural house of the sign of Virgo, and Virgo is a very perfectionistic and critical sign. These are people whose emotions very deeply impact their health. SZA has talked at length about this in interviews, about how she has to do yoga and do like mind-body practices and meditate in order to maintain her mental and physical health, because her mental issues, stress, depression, anxiety, cause such a physical reaction in her body. Like, we can think ourselves into getting sick, and we can also think ourselves into getting better sometimes. They struggle to assert their needs and boundaries in the workplace, which can lead to them overdoing it and getting burned out, like SZA did when she started recording SOS. These people struggle with self-doubt also, which causes communication issues in the workplace. They just like can't really say anything because they want to say something and then they doubt it. And SZA also has this aspect that makes that difficult as well, but like completely on the other side, where she has her Mars in Scorpio making an exact square to her rising in Aquarius. And this means that someone seems like they're always like trying to fight, like they're always being quite confrontational when they're just trying to talk and exist. And so they really easily put other people on the defensive because other people are like, well, why are you trying to pick a fight with me? And she's like, I am not. And I am not trying to pick a fight with you. I am just speaking. So she has this like self-doubt already in the way that she communicates in the workplace, combined with this like natural proclivity to put people on the defensive. It is so hard to work like that. It is so hard to maintain personal relationships. And I, once again, completely understand all of her mental health issues, all of her like introversion and, you know, just a general dislike of like going into the studio because it's so hard for her to interact with people. This really intensifies that feeling of never feeling understood because how can she? You know, what is she supposed to do? And Jupiter-Chiron in a conjunction together is really a wounding caused by faith. And I can imagine that this showed up when she had 3 ex-boyfriends die back to back and then Mac Miller and then her grandmother 2 years later, like praying to the God that she prays to and being like, what did I do to deserve this? Like, am I the reason that 3 of my ex-boyfriends died back to back? Like, am I cursed? Like, what is going on? I've always loved you and all of these bad things are happening. Like, what's the purpose? That is giving very, very Jupiter-Chiron to me. And this is such a painful aspect as well because she has a day chart. She was born during the day, which means Jupiter is her malefic of sect. It's the most positive planet in her chart. Jupiter, the planet of abundance and good fortune and luck, touching her Chiron. Every time Jupiter gets activated, her Chiron gets activated too. Every time she's having a good time and receiving good fortune and abundance and wealth and positivity, that wound gets touched as well. And so it's like, all of the good comes with pain. Once again, God's strongest soldier, Miss SZA is. So that is really what I have to say about SZA's birth chart. It is very, very difficult. I'm really glad that she's into astrology. I'm really glad that she has an astrologer and like works with an astrologer and is very into meditation and yoga because she has to be. I can't imagine like a client bringing this chart to me and looking at it and then being like, yeah, I have no practices, no coping mechanisms. It would be like, how are you alive? But I mean, the good news there is that it's never too late to start. So if that is you, like, come on, let's talk. Let's do a reading. Let's figure out how you can move forward. But I will finish up with some dates I have predictions for going forward in SZA's life. On October 18th, 2025, she's going to have a level 3 loosing of the bond zodiacal releasing from the lot of spirit. So that should be a big change in her life. On June 19th, 2026, her progressed moon, her secondary progressed moon, is going to progress to the 29th degree of Cancer, which is going to mark an emotional ending in her life. And then 1 month later, on July 17th, 2026, her moon's going to progress to 0 degrees of Leo, marking a new emotional beginning in her life, probably in a Leonine realm of like creative self-expression. And then on November 24th, 2026, she's going to have a level 2 loosing of the bond from Fortune. So this is going to be a big change in her life, but not in like her career, more so in like her personal health and like her body. Could be a good thing, could be a bad thing. And then on December 9th, 2027, her Mars progresses to 29 degrees of Scorpio, and it'll hover there for about 2 years. And then on May 9th, 2029, it progresses to 0 degrees Sagittarius. So that's going to be a really big change and a new beginning in the way that she works. Beyonce is actually going through this right now. I think she gets out of it at the end of next year, maybe around Christmas, if I remember correctly. So we've got a lot of this actually going on with really talented and popular Black female artists. I'm very intrigued to see if there are any through lines between them, like a really strong, obviously Beyonce has been a really strong like critic and rejecter of racism for her whole career. But I wonder if there's like something bigger planned behind the scenes that we're going to see. I think that would be awesome. Like, there's nothing I love more than seeing these old, white, dirty, racist, homophobe losers in the music industry, in the entertainment industry, in power, getting what they deserve. So I'm very excited. I'm honestly on the edge of my seat to see what happens there. Anyway, that is the episode. SZA, if you ever see this, I love you so much. Anyway, my name is Jessie James. This is the Popstrology podcast. I have new episodes for you every Sunday. If you have any requests for anyone whose birth chart you'd like me to cover on an upcoming episode, definitely let me know in a comment. If you enjoyed this podcast episode, I hope that you give me a subscribe, a follow, give the video a like if you're on YouTube. I'm a professional astrologer, and if you're interested in booking a birth chart reading with me, you can do so at popstrologypod.com/readings or directly on my booking page at calendly.com/popstrology. Astrology is like my greatest passion and love in the whole world, and I love to work with people. So if you've never had a birth chart reading before, or you have, but you're interested in doing something else or looking at a specific theme going forward, I'm your girl. I would love to work with you. You can also follow me on social media. I'm on TikTok at popstrologypod and Instagram at popstrologypod and my personal at astrojessie_. Anyway, I love you so, so, so much. I hope you have a wonderful week and I will talk to you soon. Bye.